order. Welcome everybody to the MSAD 15 School Board Budget Workshop. Hopefully we are live streaming. Excelente. Please everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You can join us at our next school board workshop, which will be here in the high school library at 6:30 p.m. Our next business meeting is Wednesday, March 6th. And where's that? It's New Gloucester. How long is it? It says New Gloucester. New Gloucester, right. So we'll be in the New Gloucester Meeting House on Wednesday for our next business meeting. As I was just saying before this meeting started, we have some information regarding personnel that I think we want to hear as a board, and so I was going to ask to hear a motion to amend our agenda to add an executive session at the end of it. Hear a motion to that effect?
I move we add an executive session to discuss personnel matters to the agenda. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. We'll add that at the end.
There's another vote. You can take a complete vote.
Oh.
I didn't vote yet.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Let the minutes show that the vote was 6-1.
He's not here. Do you need to put a date in?
I'm just taking it this one. All right. Okay, we do have a little bit of old business. We had a parking lot question. One of the parking lot questions that we had in the January 24 workshop was about the percent of kids that do co-curriculars or athletics in the middle school, and 83% of middle school students participate in at least one co-curricular activity, and 31% of middle school students participate in at least two co-curricular activities. So just wanted to, if people want to put that in their notes, we'll probably circle back around to that when we get into the budget discussion around the middle school. Okay, going into new business, we're hearing annual reports. On my agenda, I have technology first, but in this report, I have adult education first, and I'm fine with that. Want to go first?
Either way? Yep.
Let's just do that.
Okay.
All right, so first up is adult education. Take it away, Stephanie.
All right. All right, thank you very much. To start out with here, we have a picture of our graduation that we did.
Sorry, Stephanie, make sure to introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Stephanie Haskins, the Director of Adult Education. So to start off with, we have a picture of our graduates from the ceremony that we did in June. We did have 14 graduates, and we were able to get 7 of them to come that night. We also had an additional 3 students who participated in graduation with us who aren't pictured there, but they got their main state diploma that's awarded. It's kind of an emergency diploma that's been awarded for folks with COVID hardships. So they're not allowed to participate in the regular graduation with the high school. They participate with us in the smaller ceremony. For recognition and celebration, I am a math science person, so I present you with graphs, which is what I love. This is what we're celebrating is our numbers have just continued to grow. Where our academic students I do separate our academic from our enrichment students because it gives you a better picture of what's going on. So in FY23, we had more than 160 academic students come through our doors. That could be for anything from career changers, HiSET, and high school diploma or HiSET, high school equivalency preparation, to folks that are preparing for college and they need to do some prep work before they're ready for college level work, to workforce training. People come in for resume work. Those are our academic people. Enrichment, you can see that we're also growing back. We're back to pre-pandemic numbers of about just over 600 individuals. That's not registrations. If we went registrations, it's much higher. 600 different individuals have accessed our enrichment programming. And likewise, I want to state with this, academic students, more than 160, those are individuals. Many of them access more than one area. Some of them may start in high school diploma, then end up doing additional preparation to end up in our end up enrolling in college. Some they participate in multiple programs. Additional recognition and celebration, as I said before, 14 students earned their HiSET. The HiSET is the new GED. It's been around since about 2014, actually exactly 2014. The state switched from the GED to HiSET. I don't know if we're ever going to get rid of the GED moniker. It's like calling a Band-Aid. It's an adhesive something or other. So I think that we may be stuck with GED, but we in Maine offer the HiSET. It is available just like the GED everywhere across the country. All branches of the military, I believe the Marines are still accepting it now, or are accepting it now, and colleges accept it as well. 46 students earned a certified nursing assistant credential or medical assistant credential through our program. We have some very robust partnerships and offer those credentials here through Granby Gloucester Adult Ed. 10 or more, it's difficult to track these guys. Recent adult ed graduates enrolled in a college or training program. I attribute that number, which is growing every year, to our consistency and our lack of turnover in our advising services. We have students coming back from 3 and 4 years ago who are accessing programming and now saying, I'd like to continue, I want to move forward, how do I do that? And we've had advisors who are staying on top of the new information, sharing scholarships that are available, helping students figure out what they want to do next. So more and more students are accessing further training and post-secondary education after the diploma. This past year, our 16 to 20-year-old count increased by 100% from historic numbers. We typically have about 15 students per semester. Last year, so it would have been basically from January 1 to June 30th of 2023, we had 30, which was a huge number for us, and a lot of students coming our way. It probably is attributed to COVID. Those students were freshmen, and we know how much that uninterrupted freshman year of a solid experience helps with students completing high school. So we'll see what happens kind of moving forward if those numbers are realized, if that's a continuing trend or if that was sort of a one-year anomaly. Results of last year's goal. Our number one goal was to work with the high school and create a seamless alternative pathway for students to earn their high school credential and for graduates to transition into college and training programs. A lot of people don't realize, they do realize that we're there to help people earn a high school credential if high school didn't happen to work out the way they expected. What people don't realize is we like to call ourselves guidance counselors for adults. We're sort of that lifelong point of access to get you to your next career, maybe to help you get started in a career if you don't necessarily have one, and to help you make your next steps. So again, I had mentioned earlier the number of compulsory age students increased 100%. We had 5 graduates, I'm sorry, I wrote 2024, 5 graduates from the class of 2023 who accessed our summer college transition programs. So they accessed our services during the summer to help them when they matriculated to college programs in the fall. And that's what we would like to do, is help more students that maybe they're first gen, maybe they don't have the skills or the support to help enter into college. A lot of us, when we entered college, we didn't necessarily have to go online and sign up for classes, get our portal set up, figure out, we had to actually go visit buildings. And so to find those things. And so we're helping a lot of students navigate those pathways. And then the advisory coordinator's presence has helped us help students transition to adult education and realize that we're over there and we are available to recent graduates, not just people who didn't make it through high school. So that's been huge, is having that position to kind of help bridge that and provide that knowledge of what we offer down on the other side of the gym. Goal number 2 is to connect with recreation and libraries in Gray and New Gloucester to strengthen programming. Our joint efforts began to promote adult education and family literacy week, but progress was interrupted by staff turnover at both libraries. I think they were in the process of hiring a new librarian at New Gloucester, and the Gray librarian became town manager. There was a whole lot that I just didn't have the power to overcome those obstacles. So we will reach out and start that again. We had talked about a community book read, and then also putting forth efforts to increase the number of people to go get library cards and go become and familiarize themselves with the library services. So we also work closely with recreation departments to ensure we don't overlap. We work together, so recreation is mostly focused on our youth. Adult education, of course, focuses on adults. And then one place that we do overlap quite frequently is in our adult fitness classes. However, we make sure we complement each other. So, the recreation department offers indoor walking, but it's during the day. We offer evening indoor walking here in the evening. There's, between the two of us, I don't think one of us could do both of them. It's nice because of the space that's available. We're able to utilize the buildings more effectively and offer a variety of programming. So that's what we do, working together. Goal number 3, develop multilingual learner program to meet increasing community needs. And probably our first 8 years here, what we've done is referred students who have come seeking multilingual programs to programs around us, because I can say we've had less than 5 people come in our first 8 years. So it doesn't make sense for programming. Early in 2023 or 2022, we realized that in like the first week we had referred 5 people. So we're seeing an increase in multilingual learners. So we started a program in the evenings, and we did have 5 students who came at various times to improve their skills. We're working with neighboring districts who are also experiencing the same thing to try to hire someone that maybe can have more hours and work between the districts. But this, I think, is going to be an ongoing thing. I think we're continuing. The referrals are coming in pretty regularly and people seeking services. So that's something that we're keeping our eye on. Updates on this year's goals. We hired a social worker for 1 day each week to assist students and serve as a resource for our advisors. Our advisors have had students in crisis contact them on weekends, and just having that person available as a resource for our advisors is huge. And additionally, we've been able to get one of the social workers at the high school. So a lot of those 16 to 20 students are familiar with her already and have been able to continue services or reconnect if they left the high school, and to continue that. So that has been huge for our students and our advisors. Strategic Planning Committee is meeting throughout the year. We actually had our last meeting last night to do self-assessment, mission and vision work. The results will be ready soon for our strategic plan for the adult education program moving forward. We're developing goals and objectives for the strategic plan, and it was planned to be presented in March. So I will have to look at the schedule and see when that will come on. And then another goal for this year is replacing our antiquated computers in the adult education classroom. It's like one of those old commercials where you had dial-up, where you turn it on and then you go make the coffee, and then you can come back and try to open a program, and then so they're a little bit older, and we'll need to get those replaced for students. Current challenges, I think we've had ongoing funding challenges for quite a while. What I did was created a budget without any grants. It's very difficult for me to create a budget because as of right now, we're currently discussing one of our grants, but we don't know if we'll get it until June. The other grant is a continuation from previous years, and we won't have numbers until May or June. So creating a budget during the budget season is increasingly difficult. In all likelihood, we will get at least the continuing one, the one that we're applying for right now. We're not guaranteed. It's the application process has moved. It used to be only for adult education programs, and now it's available to any program who offers adult education-like services. So it's not just available to adult education programs, so there's increased competition for those grant monies. So our local share was increased last year, which I thank you very much, to $100,000. Our state subsidy increased this year to $47,000 for a total of $147,000. If I estimate the cost of administrative, advising, and instructional costs for the HiSET, Adult Basic Education and Multilingual Learners, I'm at $243,000. I did put in placeholders for like 10% increase on benefits, and so there's some placeholders that make that higher, and I did not account for any grants that would lower that. But that's just to give you an idea of where we're at and what the funding looks like. Continued challenges. Grants help with instruction and advising, but we rely on them too much. Every single grant comes in and says that this is to supplement, not supplant. And if you look, the majority of our advising and instructional costs are grant funded. We're something like 80% grant funded. So that's too high. Revenue generated helps. Our medical assisting classes help. And our CNA classes certainly help to offset expenses. Those help offset, we can use that to help offset Teresa. We can use that to help offset some of the expense of me because I help run them. But what we can't use that for is we can't use that to offset our multilingual courses. We can't use those monies to offset our HiSET programming or any of our adult basic education programming. Those funds are state funds that are paying for individuals to take those classes, so they can't be used for other purposes within our budget. The HiSET testing room needs soundproofing, basically due to the location. We really do like our space, it's beautiful. But one of the problems that we're experiencing is that our testing room, there are very strict restrictions on it because the HiSET is a high stakes test. And currently, our neighbor is Gateway, which sometimes is loud and sometimes is not. The intercom is right outside of the door of the testing room, and the gym is just on the other wall. So we get basketball, buzzers, PE during the day, and those things. We do have a sound machine there, but those are all things that we encounter in the testing room. And if you look at the guidelines on the HiSET, those are not acceptable for high stakes testing. They're very strict temperature, sound, et cetera guidelines, nothing on the walls, very strict guidelines on those. And then staffing for multilingual learners. I think I'm on to someone that we can hire part-time, but that continues to be a challenge, even working together with other districts to find somebody. Partnerships being leveraged. We're very proud of this. We have a great partnership with Hub 8 Cumberland County Adult Education. There are 10 programs that are in Cumberland County. Hospitals that we work with, Maine Medical Center, Central Maine Medical Center, St. Mary's, Northern Light Mercy, Northern Light Health, basically statewide as a consortium. We've recently partnered with Great Urgent Care, and they're helping to train some of our MA students. Not on here is New England Cancer Specialists. And I'm starting a conversation with, I'm not going to be able to think of the name, but another provider. I think they're down in Falmouth. Intermed. I'm starting a conversation with them to also, people are looking for MAs. There's a dire need out there, and so we're offering those trainings and help to place students there. Workforce boards, we work with the Workforce Solutions, which is Goodwill, New England, Eastern Maine Development Corp. It depends on where you live in the state as to which workforce board helps with your funding. Vocational rehabilitation, the Coastal Counties Workforce Inc., and then also with our community colleges, and we actually have an adult ed person at Southern Maine Community College. There's actually one at all of the community colleges, but the one we work with most is at Southern Maine Community College, and we like having her there so that we can send students down and we know that there's a warm place for them to land that can help answer any questions that they have. It's been very valuable for us. And that's what I got.
Alright, thanks Stephanie.
Yeah.
Questions or thoughts from, wait.
Oh, okay.
There might not be any questions, but.
I didn't know if those were at the
Any questions or thoughts about adult education? Go ahead, Fran.
Do you work with the state on Maine Unemployment and that agency down there?
Like the Career Center?
Career Center?
Yes, yes, that's where, yeah, and those state agencies, that's included in that.
You do
Yes,
great.
absolutely. The Career Center, Vocational Rehabilitation is down there. We're one of, it's a group, it's a partnership in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. We're all called one-stop partners, and there's a no wrong door approach, which is what we all work on, so that no matter where the entry point is, people can receive the services they need. And that's one of the huge pieces that our advisors have done, is helping people navigate all of those different services, because some students need the education piece, but they also might need the vocational rehabilitation piece to help partner them with employers and to train them. And then they also may need the funding piece, and so then they work with Goodwill Workforce Solutions. So they're really, it almost becomes case management for several of our learners, because they're accessing multiple points of entry and using multiple resources to get where they need to be.
Can I get another question, or?
Sure, go ahead.
So on the adult education, the fees that are charged, do they cover the expenses of having that program, or do we subsidize any of the adult education programs?
So I guess I'm gonna need you to clarify, are you talking about enrichment, or are you talking about, so enrichment covers itself. Enrichment, we don't pay any of the enrichment instructors, so that's your Zumba, your art classes, your, all of those. Under the enrichment umbrella, none of those instructors are paid out of any local or subsidy funds. It's all paid, they cover themselves, they pay for one of our brochures, and there's usually a couple thousand left over to help offset Teresa's time. It does not 100% cover Teresa's time, because there are, Teresa is our, she's the one that runs a lot of those programs and does a lot of the brochure, the marketing, and scheduling, and those things. So it does not 100% cover her time, but there are a lot of programs that we offer that are a public service, and so I'm not sure, I guess finding that balance would be tricky, because people want to come in and offer, say, a Medicare class, and there's no fee for that, but there's still time involved in setting it up, making sure the room's ready, collecting registrations, etc. So, so that's the story on that. As far as the college transitions courses, HiSET preparation, we can't charge on those classes. It's not allowed.
And those are funded by?
Those, that's what you
grants
use, the
or
grants,
local funds?
local share, state subsidy. Those are, that's where those are funded by. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Can you elaborate on, or relying too heavily on grants? Grant money, what is your concern about that?
So in the grants, the grants are there to help supplement and provide additional programming, not to pay for all of your programming. So say we receive 30,000 from between the two grants, the two big grants that we receive 30,000. Our total cost for instruction and advising that helps to offset might be, I'll have to look at specific figures, but it's something along the lines of like 38 to 40,000. So a very, very big chunk of our programming is paid for out of grants, not from subsidy or from local share. They want to see that money used to offer additional programming, to enhance programming, not to be your programming. And I think that's similar with other grants
Yeah.
that the district receives for, I think that's a general.
What we don't want to be is dependent on grants to be able to provide the services that we've promised. Because if the grants don't come through, then we can't provide the services, and we find our,
And that's where that's the position we're in right now. We're working really hard and very diligently to continue to receive the adult education and federal literacy money. However, they have increased the number of people who can apply for it. And we don't know until June if we've received it or not.
So kind of similar lines, I'm very interested in the strategic planning document. I want to make sure that we can consider it as part of the budget process.
Okay.
I'm not, without throwing any shade, I'm guessing it won't be ready by Wednesday because you just had the last meeting yesterday.
No, we did
That's
have
our
to change.
business meeting.
Right.
But do you think it would be ready to consider at our March 27 workshop, which is the next
I can do
time we
that.
kind of look at the whole budget?
I can do that.
Because I do think we have to discuss just, there's a gap between the money and the budget. And we did increase it a little bit last year. We talked about maybe it was a step towards increasing it more. We may or may not,
Yeah.
not saying anything, but I want to make sure
Well,
that we have a
right. If you
strategic document
at
in
least got the
hand
information.
as we're doing that consideration. I just
Yes,
want to make
and
sure
I
we have all.
appreciate that.
I don't
Yep.
want the strategic plan to come out after we've had to make the call.
It's not super helpful. Yep,
Does that make sense?
absolutely. Yep.
Any other thoughts or questions on adult ed? All right, thanks, Stephanie.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, next up is technology. Chris, coming from behind the keyboard. Make sure you stay in the right place.
Can't get that right. So much easier from back there. I was kind of wondering if I could present. Okay, so I'm Chris Galasso. I'm the Director of Technology here at MSAD 15. So talking about our recognition and celebrations, and I apologize, there may be some redundancy with my presentation from the winter session, but I just want to put some emphasis on these things. So we completed our cybersecurity grant this year. It was valued at $88,800. It went into our firewall, which is part of our network, and that was offered from the Department of Education. So then we also completed our wireless network project, which was part of our E-rate from last year. So a portion of that was done over the summer, and the final portion of that, which was our switch kind of replacements at our elementary schools, was done over November break. And then another kind of highlight for us was we ended our support contract with MBA, which is the Marcia Brenner Associates, for data support. So this was a plan that we picked up during a time that we were without data support or in need of data support. So they were kind of covering us during that interim. And we didn't reach a full year of support with them, but if we had, it would have cost the district $78,720. So we ended that contract. So I wanted to put in the transition period that the technology department has gone through. We've gone through a lot of this actually before my time, but just the fact that, coming into having a data position that was vacant, and then moving into, trying to get a technology director in place, and then hiring for a data specialist and trying to get everything in order. It really kind of is a testament to the people on our team and how committed they are to the district, because we've been through a lot, and I think we're kind of at a good place where we're very settled and, offering the best support that we can. So on that same line, we did hire a data specialist Lori Lindner. That was in November, and she's been great, just picking up the management of our student information system. She handles our state reporting, and she's just been doing amazing in that position. And since I have a small department that I really just couldn't do this position without, I just kind of wanted to give like a quick shout out to everybody that's on my team. So Casey is our technician support that covers our elementary schools in our district office. She's pursuing a degree in cybersecurity, and she's really she's very current on security vulnerabilities, which is just a huge piece for us because it's really an area that we need to focus in. And then Jen covers our high school adult ed and our bus garage, and she's also our district webmaster. So basically everything that you see on the website comes from her, is posted from her. So she does a great job with that. And then Heather Mills, she covers our middle school, and she does a great job with that and staying current on our new technologies. So that's the shout out. So I should preface this with, these were last year's goals, and because I wasn't here last year as we were trying to accomplish these goals, I'm kind of basing this off of how I feel like we're doing this year. So one of the goals from last year was to maintain high standards, quality control, and customer service. So as a technology department, just this year alone, we've closed 260 help desk tickets, which is our internal help desk system. That doesn't account for our student support, staff walk-up support, fires, emergencies that need to be put out right away. So
There was a fire?
Fire as in just like an immediate action needed. And so I think we could bump that number up quite a bit. We've also dispatched 125 Apple Care repairs, which are for our Apple devices. This is where the technicians receive Apple devices and they send them out to Apple for repair. And another focus that we've been doing is just kind of a lot of teamwork on resolving issues and regularly scheduling projects. So we've been putting projects up on our calendar and we kind of work through those as a team, which really gives us a good chance to work together on these things. And maintaining a technology support presence in our building, just to have that immediate support. So that's been something that we've been focusing on. So another goal from last year was to ensure the devices purchased by the district meet the needs of the students and teachers. So what we've done this year is we asked each employee to complete a survey to describe their computing experience. So that actually just went out recently, and the results were very good, very eye-opening in some areas that we'd like to kind of look into a little bit more, but really kind of justified the direction that we're hoping to go with our device purchase. When I first started in the position, one of my first kind of tasks was to meet one-on-one with the principals and kind of get a good feel of what was happening in the schools and where the struggles were with technology and what was going right and what was going wrong. So I did that, and that's something that I want to do more. That's kind of a goal from last year, and that's like an ongoing goal to continue that connection. And then basically receiving day-to-day input from staff and students and just kind of general walk-up. So, it's important to know about their experiences with technology and how they feel things are going. And then another goal was to plan for financial sustainability. So one thing for us was one important thing for us was kind of to leverage the discounts that Apple offers. That's something that we want to take advantage of, especially for bulk purchasing, because we get a rather large discount when we do that. And we don't know how long those discounts are going to last, so that's something that we can talk about more. We also want to leverage buyback options for our older technology, so that devices that have gone out of warranty or are going out of warranty, we don't want to just kind of let those sit. There's a value to those, so we want to offer those up so we can get that money back into the purchase that we would be making. One thing we have done and we continue to do is maximizing our E-rate funding for our district's networking needs. So that's something we are planning to continue to do. And then maintaining an accurate inventory of devices, which is very important, especially for me as I'm, becoming familiar with everything that we have. It's important to know the age and kind of determine the longevity of devices. So this year's goals are attention to our network and our infrastructure. So this is our main, this was our main district network feed. So basically if you have Spectrum at home, that internet connection that comes into your house, that was this for the school district. So we put some attention into this, turned it into this. Cable management, it's OSHA compliant. Just kind of a lot of attention to cleaning up these things. So that was one thing that we did. We do have some other closets that we would like to focus on, but I don't know. I like that. Just very organized. I don't know. It's a thing. So then we also installed, as part of the cybersecurity grant, some firewalls, which you can't really see in this picture, but they're kind of tucked in here. And that's basically our protection for the district on traffic coming into the district and traffic going out of the district. So it's a super important appliance that we have in place now. We are, like I said, we're evaluating bids in preparation for our wireless network project at the high school. So the high school's wireless network is up for renewal this year. So we're looking at bids for E-rate on that. The attention to data. So we're doing a lot of data integrity work. So we've removed many plugins and customizations, and I should say plugins kind of go right along with customizations because a lot of the plugins just alter web pages and do different things within our student information system. So we've been working on removing the ones that are not necessary or redundant or just not specific for our district. So that was kind of the first phase of doing that work. And then we're fixing the ones that are relevant and we can kind of utilize. And we're actually kind of working on creating and making customizations that are specific for the district to help out our district. So that's kind of some work that we're doing with that. We did just complete our civil rights data collection report, which is a very lengthy, kind of intense federal DOE report that we have to do. So we got through that process. That was based on the 21-22 school year. So, and actually that shows up in our ESA dashboard on the DOE site, Maine Department of Education site. And we are actually starting our implementation work on PowerSchool enrollment, which is our new registration system. I was hoping to get started on that sooner. We had kind of some struggle getting the commitment from PowerSchool to take on that project, but we actually are going to be starting that tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot more work to be done there. So that's that. And then another goal, the other goal is kind of the attention to servicing our schools. So we've been doing a lot of reviewing our user accounts, our email accounts, Apple School Manager, which is where our devices come in as they're purchased, Jamf, which is our Apple management solution. So we're reviewing all these platforms and making updates as necessary. And then we are currently reviewing our existing communication tool because that's up for renewal with a potential 3-year commitment. So
Is that School Messenger?
School Messenger. So actually there was a suggestion about looking at another communication tool. So we're looking at that, which there's a slight increase in cost, but you get a lot more from that. So it's, we're kind of at that time where it's worth considering these other things. So, and then, we're planning for a successful device refresh, which that's a whole nother conversation. So I don't have all those details just yet, but we're working on that. So our current challenges so one of them is our replacement cycle for E-rate networking project. So right now we're kind of looking at a 5-year longevity out of our networking devices at our schools. In kind of talking about that, getting an idea of how other districts are doing that, and kind of looking at the equipment, we may be able to push that out to an 8-year replacement cycle so we can take advantage of E-rate in some different capacity. Ultimately it depends on kind of the lifespan of the devices. So if we run into a situation where they need to be replaced, we can account for that, but we just kind of want to span that out a little bit longer. So there's that. Phone system redundancy issues. So that's another challenge for us. That's something that we want to kind of look at more. So basically what happens is all of our phones kind of funnel through our high school. So if our high school phone server goes down, unfortunately it affects the whole district, which we want to kind of take a look at that and see if we can kind of put some mechanisms in place to have schools kind of individual so that the high school going down doesn't ultimately affect the entire district. So just kind of some redundancy issues with that. Print management is something that we want to look at. Printing in general is just something to look at, and it's always something to keep on your radar. Cybersecurity for K-12, which obviously is super important. That's something that we're looking at every day. We get logs on this every day, so we want to move into kind of a more proactive approach with our cybersecurity, as opposed to kind of reacting to what's coming in. And then training, which also goes along with cybersecurity, and some of our other technology areas. And then our partnerships, so we have our Maine Educational Technology Directors Association, the Association of Computer Technology Educators of Maine, which are these email forums, and it's good collaboration amongst districts, the Greater Sebago Educational Alliance, Positive Vendor Relationships, and our local district collaboration. So districts in the neighboring area, keep a good relationship with them. So I think that's it for me.
All right, thanks, Chris. Open the floor for questions or comments. Go ahead, Jason.
This may be a parking lot question.
Okay.
So don't feel like you have to have the answer.
Okay.
We have several different applications that we use throughout the district for various purposes. Are we currently using integrations to help with data management between those applications? And if not, are we looking into implementing any more integrations to help with that, to help keep our accuracy of our data?
Yeah, so we are. So like School Messenger being a perfect example, we do have a direct connection from our student information system that feeds School Messenger. As we're considering other options for a communication tool, that's on the forefront of anything that we were considering utilizing. We've looked at other, that's a very important piece because we can't really maintain the duplicate data entry. So as long as it can integrate with our student information, that's very important. Yeah.
Thank you.
No questions? Go ahead, Matt.
So roughly, how many computers do we have in the system?
So roughly right now in our Apple management solution, we have about 23 to 2,400. So there are devices that haven't been purged out of that, and that doesn't include, so we do have some Chromebooks set aside, so that would actually be in a different
solution. We also have some of our office staff devices, which are Windows devices, so those aren't part of that. So I would say probably roughly 2,400, but I can give you a more accurate.
Yeah, I just need a ballpark. So, are you on like a program that you replace like a third every 3 years, every 5 years or whatever? You know, what's your schedule for replacement?
For device replacement?
Yeah.
So for device replacement with our Apple devices, so those are under a 4-year Apple Care warranty. So we do have MLTI devices, which are, so MLTI has offered 1 grade level worth of devices. So those are also Apple devices, but they only allow a 3-year Apple Care warranty when they issue those. So those ones don't have as long of a Apple Care warranty as the ones that we purchase as a district, because we would purchase them with a 4-year Apple Care. So.
Would there be a problem with the contract with Apple if you went to say extend to 5 years?
They won't
Instead
go
of what they
beyond
wanted to
4
do?
years.
Okay.
So that is a question that I asked our Apple rep, and it sounds like that's not an option, but I would like to follow up on that, because unfortunately we haven't received an official announcement about MLTI just yet this year. This is something that we're all waiting for, because we really all need to apply for it, because we're accounting for 1 grade level next year to be covered under MLTI. So, but they haven't released like an official kind of application for that just yet. So I don't have the exact details, so that's kind of based on last year's information.
But just to follow on that, just to make sure that everybody is clear,
Yeah.
when are we next scheduled to replace the majority of our devices?
So that would be this coming year.
Correct? So when are we going to have that whole other conversation about device replacement? Are we doing that at the March?
Wednesday.
We're doing that Wednesday, okay. That's on the business meeting schedule, okay. Because we're gonna have to talk about that for budget session. I just wanna make sure that we'll have all the information we need available by the time we need to consider it in the budget.
Yep. So I have all the numbers ready.
Okay.
I just need to make it a little bit more presentable.
And we're
Yeah.
gonna do that at the Wednesday business meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Finish up.
Well, okay, I just need a clarification on the civil rights and our school. I don't know what those are. What's that?
So the civil rights data collection is a report that we have to do for the Federal Department of Education. So they do it over kind of a different kind of year span. And so this year, the one that we just completed was based on our data from 21-22. So it's a bit behind. But we have to report out on quite a bit of stuff that happened that year. And it's a lot of kind of enrollment information, demographic information, discipline information.
You do that in technology? It's not done like at the central office or something?
Well,
Done at the central office, but we have to use a
Ah, the
specific
data management.
program.
yeah, it's the data, as I said, so.
And you'll have platform costs too, obviously, for Wednesday as well, right? Platform, coming to the cost of these platforms.
Yes. Yeah.
And, I just was taken by positive vendor relationship. I'm not pretty sure what would it be positive.
Oh, I know. I
wonder what that is all about.
I snuck that one in there, but, you know, I think that, like, especially for me being new, I'm trying to kind of, you know, work through like our existing vendors and who we use for purchasing and, you know, keep that relationship good. And then some of our, like, our other vendors, our software vendors, you know, trying to maintain a good relationship with them. So it's easier to work with them. So there's some that I'm struggling with, but in general, they're mainly pretty good.
Looks like you've done a lot. Yeah.
Trying to do a lot.
Jim, does
Yeah,
you have a question?
yeah, I have two questions. The building security system hardware and software, do you have any role in that? Is it completely separate? Is there any shared resources?
So the building security, so it does, I mean, it utilizes our network, and actually we do have a vendor kind of support contract for the security cameras, so that happens through one of our vendors. I mean, we do help in kind of managing that and allowing access to that, and then we would be the initial point of contact if there was any kind of outage of like a security camera, or if the vape detectors aren't working, so we can be a point of contact to try to assist for that. But ultimately, we do have a kind of a support contract that we have a vendor that we work with that kind of assists in those situations.
Okay, now I know you're not involved in instruction, but I think you probably be able to answer this question as good as anybody. To what extent does a student that goes through this school get exposed to the PC Windows environment that is pretty much used throughout commercial enterprises, as opposed to the educational setting?
I'm going to say not very much, to the point where, and so this is just my opinion,
Yeah,
but like, and you know, I would like even consider basing that off of like even the options that are presented from MLTI or Department of Education devices. You know, they'll only I believe right now, I mean, it hasn't been presented yet, but I believe what they do present is only going to be either a Chromebook solution or an Apple solution. So that's even coming from the Department of Education, that, you know, Windows devices aren't even being kind of presented in that manner.
I've been using computers for 40 years, and I've never even owned, other than I've never even owned an Apple or a Mac or anything.
Right.
It's just, they're almost invisible in typical work setting, except for education.
Right. And I think that's why we have kind of a lot of emphasis on some of these online tools that can be kind of cross-platform compatible, so. Yeah, no, I hear you, I hear you.
Yeah, and that's, the Chromebooks are all browser-based, and I think, what Chris is saying, to put a point on it, is we try to use browser-based solutions that would work in a Windows environment or an Apple environment, but they don't use Windows.
So I had another question. In your previous presentation before, you talked a bit about, some of the infrastructure changes that had occurred and building some redundancy there and things like that. And you talked a little bit about, you mentioned that a little bit in the phone system. Can you expand on the phone system redundancy?
Oh, sure. I didn't want to geek out in my presentation, so I really backed down on a lot of things that I wanted to say. But so basically, we use GoNetspeed, which at one point was a telco, and at the time it was set up in a way that our phone traffic was only coming from one address. That's what they had requested for our setup. So in that unfortunate situation, we were forced to kind of put all of our traffic directed into one SIP server that we keep here, and then all the traffic goes out from that one server. So basically, when our phone company gets the traffic from the district, they only see it coming from one address. They don't see it coming from Dunn or Memorial. They only see it coming from one address. So unfortunately, in a situation where we have issues with that traffic going out, that traffic coming back in, it affects the entire district. And that's kind of where we need to build some redundancy, because now as GoNetspeed, I don't know when they allowed kind of additional traffic, but now we're at a point where we could send traffic from each of our schools under different addresses and it wouldn't be an issue. So.
Okay, so then I have a follow-up.
Yeah.
So is it possible to build in a system that would allow for failover? So for the school systems, if it's failed, you could fail over to one of the others, and so we can continue the phone traffic, even though that they're having issues with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that would probably be a benefit to building in this redundancy, that there would be that kind of failover case. We did, we do have, and you know, the conversation of power outages came up and kind of a solution for that. And there are copper lines that actually go out to the phone poles that, you know, we were kind of hoping to utilize that wouldn't be impacted by a power outage. So that's another kind of area that we're looking at, you know, bringing that back into place just in case there's a power outage and no method of, you know, calling out, taking calls. But yeah, redundancy is, that's, yeah.
So given that we went, I don't know, 3 days without any phones for the district earlier this year, do you need any resources to make this happen? It seems to me that it has some priority attached to it.
It does, and that's kind of why I said the word fire. Actually, that was an example of that. In my mind, that is kind of a fire to put out. So we're looking into that. We're actually, so we have kind of conversations going with GoNetSpeed. To be completely honest, I've struggled with getting connected to a phone support rep. It's very kind of, you know, your help desk ticket goes in here, but I don't want to, you know, completely bash the process, but just kind of working on getting the right people in place and kind of, we have the technology here in place to spin up servers at our different schools, so I'm not too concerned about that. It's just kind of getting the right people on the line to make it happen, so.
Okay. I'm just saying, make sure the budget ask is in there. So
Right. I mean, we definitely could improve in that area, but I think if we were in a pinch and needed to make a quick adjustment, we could certainly accommodate that, so, yeah.
I think it was earlier this year, even last year, I can't remember exactly when it got brought up, but you noticed, you said in your PowerPoint too, on Power School. How are we coming with that? Because I know that it sounded like at one point there was a lot to possibly clean up with that, and is that getting done and
It's
moving forward?
Yeah, it's getting done, and you know, we're definitely working on that. I think as we transition into Power School enrollment, it's going to force us to really look at all the fields of data and where the redundancy is. So redundancy in data is kind of a bad thing. The redundancy of data that we can kind of eliminate. So we kind of, we're taking in enrollment information kind of in the one place that it needs to be and not in a bunch of different places. So it's really going to help us. Unfortunately, it is a long process, but it's something that we do need to go through and make sure. But yeah.
And there are elements that, like, we have to close down this school year before we can go tinker with that part. And so, you know, there's sort of like a set of stuff too, that as we move from this school year into the new school year, we'll be able to make kind of more in bulk, in mass,
Right.
And kind of rebuild it that way too, which we're excited about.
So do we think that will be able to take place before the start of next school year?
Power School enrollment, the estimate is 6 to 8 weeks. I think based on where we are with data, we're probably going to be like right in between there. So there's a big portion of that that's, you know, part of our data mapping. So, and again, like Jana mentioned, there's a bunch of other kind of things that are going on that pertain to, like, so right now, like with the scheduling and working towards next year from our high school and our middle school, we're, you know, working through that too. So, but I believe I'm fairly confident that it'll be in place for next year. My hope is to have it in place prior to kind of the pre-K registration, so I'm still under that mindset that I want to shoot for that. I don't know if that's realistic to meet at this point, but that's still important.
Go ahead, Pam.
Who's supplying the phone service?
The phone service, as far as like our
Phone.
phone provider, so it's GoNetSpeed.
Okay.
So GoNetSpeed is the provider. So our hardware is actually from, so we have, so our telco, we have the telco hardware in place, but our phone service provider is GoNetSpeed.
We have power backup at each campus?
So we do have battery backups at each one of our network classes, and one of those Those will last maybe 45 minutes to an hour,
It
so.
doesn't last. And generators too?
So we have a generator here in our main high school kind of network, but actually the one that I showed you the picture of, that one's run off of the generators.
With generators at different campuses, would that help it in the,
So that's a conversation. We do have generators, but the networking equipment, the phone equipment hasn't been attached to those generators yet. We kind of have to look at the capacity and what those will support, so. Yeah, that is something that we've talked about, especially during the power outages. That was a conversation that we were.
in this town, it seems like different areas lose different amounts of time of outages around. In other words, I hardly ever lose power. But the people up the street, they go 3 days without power, so, and it's sporadic throughout the town like that. And I'm sure it's the same in Gloucester, I don't know, but, so, it's quite a challenge, I think.
Yeah, and it's a state of panic for me because I get notifications whenever our networking equipment goes down. So like on the occasion that I'll see Dun go down at night, and I'm just like so worried that, we're gonna start the next school day without, network, but,
So maybe there's a streamlined thing, maybe connect with the phones, I don't know, I'm not the person who's talking about this
Yeah,
anyway, but,
well,
just on the surface of it.
it's a conversation, but we need to kind of like consider the capacity of our generators and what we can, put on there, so.
I don't think we need to solve that problem right this minute. Other questions or thoughts on technology? All right, thanks, Chris.
All right, thank you.
Very thorough, appreciate it. Next up is Health Services, Chanda.
I love how so many of our folks had great pictures of kids in health services. They're sort of a privacy thing. I can't really do that, so I had to go open source images. I hope you enjoy them. So health services, my first celebration, I didn't actually put up here, and that's that I haven't actually had to do a health services presentation in like a hot minute, and like we used to have to do them like every week. So I feel like this is pretty cool that I haven't had to talk to you about this in a while. So that's exciting. But my other big recognition celebration, our lead school nurse, Tanya Gillipratt, a lot of you know her and love her. She has been working really hard to become a national board certified school nurse. That is a national organization of a rigorous set of criteria that you have to meet that then culminates in an enormous exam that she was more nervous for than she was her NCLEX. I think that's what the nursing test is called. She said she had to work harder for this than she did for her nursing license, and she passed with flying colors on the first try, and she is now a nationally board certified school nurse. And so congratulations to Tanya, we're really proud of her. Other celebrations, things we're proud of. So last school year, we were able to support 153 students who have asthma that require treatment at school. 5 students with type 1 diabetes, 14 with seizure disorders, 45 with life-threatening injury allergies. We have multiple students who require one-on-one nursing care, RN care, and we have 27 students who need at least one daily medication at school. I'll take a moment to remind folks, share with folks, the point of our health office and having our school nurses and our health aides are not to provide health care for the totality of a child and their family. The purpose of having a health office is to help kids stay in school. It's to make sure that health is not the reason they can't come. So that we were able to successfully support these kids so that they could stay in school is super important. So we're proud of that. And that goes into my next piece, which is our nurses had 16,295 office visits last year. That's pretty on par for us. That's not, out of those, 15,227 resulted in kids going back to class. That is why nurses are here. So they can come, children can receive what they need, and then the kids can go back to class. And that's not to say that they're saying, oh, you're fine, it doesn't matter, you're throwing up, just go back to class, right? They have very clear criteria of the children who need to go home, and they work with families on that because that looks different for different kids. But the fact that they were able to have that many number of office visits and all the data that goes with that, and be able to get that many of our kids right back to class, back to the learning environments, literally why they are here. So we're proud of that. So last year's goals, if you want to know the full detail, it is in the written report that we submitted in December. I'm going to start with 2 and 3 because we did really good on those. Reestablishing health office screenings. We're required to do vision screening and hearing screening, close up and far away, and a couple different hearing screenings throughout, at a number of points throughout a student's career with us. That had fallen a little bit on the wayside during COVID. We weren't getting all of our screenings done, go figure. So our goal for last year was we need to make sure that we're doing all of our screenings. We were able to do 100% of our screenings. That's 2,460 screenings in all. So that is how many times we had to sit a child down and do a hearing test or a vision test with them. Some kids you have to do the vision test a couple times because they can't do the whole thing in the first try. We got to do it a couple of times. You do Sam's class today. Well, these 2 kids were sick, so now we got to follow up and track those kids down. So it's a huge undertaking. They were 100% compliant last year, and I will say for this year, we are at this point now where we have completed all of our screenings for this year. So we're really, really proud of that. Our other goal for last year was redesign the health office staffing. You guys have heard me talk about this a little bit, but basically the plan was that prior to COVID, we had 2 RNs and 3 health aides covering the district. We had proposed moving to a 3 RN, 2 health aide model. When COVID happened, we really needed 5 RNs, so we used some of our federal ESSER funds to support that, and we had 5 RNs in the district. The goal was that in the 24-25 school year, we would have returned to that 3 RN, 2 health aide model. The plan was to do that over time. We had an opportunity this fall to move to that 3 RN health aide model ahead of schedule, so we took that opportunity. So that goal is actually 100% complete, a year ahead of schedule. So we're happy with that. Our other goal is around immunization law implementation. Essentially, immunizations have always been required for schools, but there were a lot of exemptions that were allowed. And a few years ago, the legislature came together and they got rid of a whole bunch of the exemptions. They really locked down on it. So at this point, really there are only, you can have a medical exemption, or there's one little loophole around if you had an IEP in a certain time period, right? But those are the only 2 reasons you can't be 100% compliant with the children's required vaccines. On top of that, they've added a couple that are required for kids. There's now a meningitis booster that's required in 11th or 12th grade, depending on how old your child is, that was new in the last couple of years. So we had to implement this law. It's no easy task, I will tell you. We're gonna say it's 90% complete. Craig and I have been talking about it a lot the last couple of weeks. I really probably should give us more credit. We're really 95, 98% complete. I will tell you, we don't have a single kid in this district that is not vaccinated. We don't. Like, we are mostly compliant. We have kids who have medical exemptions. We have a kid. We don't have anyone who's just not compliant. We don't, right? The problem is this isn't a black or white issue. There's a lot of gray in between, and that's what we're experiencing as we go through implementation of this law. So what we have is a handful of families where perhaps they were on a catch-up schedule, and so they're in compliance today, but tomorrow they were due for a booster. So now, from tomorrow until the day they get the booster, they're out of compliance. So we're calling the family and saying, hey, what's your plan? They say, hey, we have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. We say, great, but you want to know what? If the state pulls the plan on that day in between, we're out of compliance. And under the state's rule, we get listed as out of compliance if one student in the entire district is not 100% compliant within the law on the minute that they pull that report. Because I'll tell you, sometimes it's different in the morning than it is in the afternoon. We are considered non-compliant. So Craig and I have spent a lot of time talking about, sorry, let me add, if students are not compliant with the state schedule, we are supposed to exclude them from school. We are supposed to say, you are now not allowed to attend school. You cannot come on a Greater Gloucester campus. Craig and I have spent a lot of time saying, there are a lot of cases where that's not really fair. So back to my point of your students due for a booster, and they have the vaccination and then the booster is 6 weeks later. At 5 weeks and 6 days, they're not allowed to get it. On the 6-week day, if they haven't got it yet, they're now out of compliance. Are we to expect families to know the exact day and be able to then work with their doctor to get that vaccine that day? And then if they can't, we're standing at the door saying, you can't come in? We're not doing that. Not doing that. So what our nurses are doing, they're working really hard with families to help them, make sure they're aware of what kids need, make sure they're supported in getting access to these. But the reality of the law is, we're never gonna be 100% compliant. We never are. Because when I talk with that family, I worked with a family earlier this year, their kiddo needed a booster. The doctor's office said they couldn't get them in for 6 weeks. Walgreens was out, they didn't have any. I'm on the phone with our school physician at Maine Health saying, do you have anywhere I can send this family to get this vaccine? They had transportation issues. I'm going, well, you can go to Portland Public Health. They didn't have a way to get to Portland Public Health. The 90% is not because they don't want to be. Our families want to be. Access is an issue, process is an issue, the way it all works is an issue. I will say we are 99% there. The families that nurses and Craig and I are working on, we're probably under 5 families in the whole district that we're working on to come into compliance. Most everyone else is all set. So thank you for listening to my rant about my frustrations about the black and white nature of legislation. It's not allowing for the gray. We're trying to allow for the gray in a way that protects all of our students, but also doesn't penalize students for things that really are not in their control. Okay, so let's move on. Our goals for this year. So we have some goals around health data tracking. We have always tracked some data in PowerSchool. It is not something that PowerSchool is designed to do. So we have sort of borrowed it to do that. It's not great, it's not fantastic. It would be nice to have more of our records automated. For example, back to our immunization question, on the day that family was supposed to have an appointment, the next day the nurse can go into our state impact system and see, did that kid get that immunization? But right now they have to go into the system and see. There are systems where you can automate that, where they talk to impact and then they can just see whether they're compliant or not. So those are sort of the things that we've been looking at. To get there, we really have to have an electronic health records system. The state is really pushing schools and school nurses to do this. So much so that they put out a grant and they're basically begging people to apply for it. So my nurses were game. Chris was like, I can do this. I'm like, all right, let's look into it. Well, they gave us $10,000. They didn't give us, I didn't apply for it. How the grant worked is you get $10,000. You have to give 1,000 of it to someone in your district who's the head implementer. It would have been one of our nurses. And then the rest of it you can use to pay for 1 year of your health records. So we went out and we talked to a couple of different companies. We looked for people that integrate with PowerSchool specifically, and we got quotes from them. And the prices were staggering. I couldn't believe how expensive it was. So it wasn't going to cover the costs in this first year. And then if we wanted to continue it, it was going to cost us $7,000 to $10,000 a year for a product that we weren't really sure was going to solve our problems. So we ended up saying, okay, this probably isn't the answer. So instead, we're going back, we're working really closely with Chris around what software do we already have, what systems do we already have, how can we make that work better so that we can access our health data a little bit more easily than we are now. Individually, I'll just kind of put out there the other reason we weren't interested in going for the grant is we're monitoring state Department of Education conversations. I'm on record predicting that in They have not committed to this, but we are anticipating, writing on the wall, that in the next 3 to 5 years, the state will have an electronic health record system that they will expect school nurses to use. They haven't said that. It's not in any official plans, but based on the work and the PD that they're doing with nurses and the amount of trouble they're having pulling the data that the legislature is asking them to pull, I would anticipate that eventually the state's going to come forward with a statewide solution.
You can't have every district having a different EHR. What if a kid moves districts and
Exactly.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And so I would hate for us to then be investing our time, our energy, and our money in a system that then later on may or may not be the one that the state adopts. So where we are this year is we're going to stick at bullet 2. We're going to look at what systems we have and try to make them work best for us in the meantime while we wait to kind of see how this electronic health records thing plays out. Health office staffing, I shared with you already. We implemented the 3 nurses and 2 health aides model. What that means, our work for this year is a little bit different in that we're working on how you supervise and work with a health aide, right? The last few years, they've been 5 RNs, they're colleagues. Tanya was their leader, so she's the go-to, but they really could work collaboratively, but they weren't in charge of each other, right? They weren't overseeing someone who is providing care essentially on their license. So we've been working with our nurses and our health aides to be very clear about delineations and responsibilities, who does what, when, where, and why, and sort of working with our nurses who maybe haven't really had to supervise a health aide in the past on, you know, the best ways to do that. So that's been our work for this year. The third piece we've been doing is collaborative professional development, recognizing that sometimes our peers in the area and throughout the state are our best source of learning. So we partnered, and by we, I'm gonna say Tanya and Tracy Ross in particular. Those 2 stepped forward. They partnered with a couple of nurses over at RSU 14, Wyndham Raymond schools, and they put together a regional professional development here as part of the Greater Sebago Education Alliance. That was here in this library. 27 nurses from 8 school districts came, as well as the lead of school nursing for the Maine Department of Education and a couple other folks that are in that department. And they got together in this room and talked about the big issues and problem solved with each other and collaborated. So that was really successful. And they ended up staying, and it was a Friday. They ended up staying till almost 4 or 5 o'clock that night, here sitting at the table, excitedly talking about what they could do next, right? So the RSU 14 nurses, our nurses, the person from the state, and we were just talking about what else we could do and what nurses needed and how we could work together to provide that. So that's going to continue to grow, and I think that's a really great option for our nurses. We have a school physician. I call him John. In this moment, I cannot remember what his last name is to tell you, but he is an MD through Maine Health, and he is the school physician in a number of area school districts, so he has a lot of experience working with schools. He came in this fall and spent a day with us doing training on what they're seeing in Maine Health, in pediatrics, what's new, what's happening, what's different, what school nurses need to know based on kind of some of the different things happening in communities and in health at the time. And it was super helpful. And then he's also, part of our contract with him is he's always on the other end of the phone whenever we have a question or something that's too big, we're not sure what to do. We can pick up the phone. If he doesn't know, he's been connecting us with the resources of people who do know, and it's been really, really helpful. And then, well, I kind of said this. So with the GC, we're looking at adding some additional dates, partnering with our school physicians so that they can come in and do presentations on specific subjects that school nurses say they need some more information on. Some topics have been, particularly around mental health challenges in students and some of those medications. There are new medications being used to support students and what nurses need to know about that. There was a whole thing around cardiac health in students. Anytime you see the tragic cases of teenagers having sudden cardiac events, particularly in athletic settings, that gets nurses thinking again. So bringing in some athletic MDs to talk about what that's like, those sorts of topics. So well underway. Current challenges, I've talked to this committee about this in the past. We have a number of students who have significant medical needs, and through their IEP 504 processes and on direction of their medical team, require someone who has an RN delineation to be next to them at every minute that they are at school. So back to the point of having RNs, the point is that so that kids can, that in order for this child to attend school, they have to have an RN next to them at all times. That used to be a once in a career kid, right? I would say a lot of us who have been in education over the time, like we're thinking of who that kid was, right? It was a once in a career kid. You'd have a kid come in whose needs were so significant that they needed an RN with them. That's less the case these days. We have multiple. We're not the only district that has multiple. So that's really, really challenging because we can't use our school nurses for that necessarily. But, and I'm not going to get into the depths of this, but there's this dynamic where like DHS has a role in providing that nurse, but if DHS can't provide that nurse, we have the responsibility to do that. So where that then hits us is either we're hiring the nurse and billing DHS directly, so we've been doing some of that, or if we have a kid who's supposed to be coming to school today and their agency nurse calls out sick, I have to close my health office somewhere in the district and pull my school nurse to be that child's one-on-one nurse that day. Unfortunately. Now, maybe I should put this on celebration. We now have almost, by next week, 3 RN substitute nurses. I can't explain to you what a big deal this is. We have not really had RN nurses since subs since before COVID. So we have been able to use that a little bit where we would bring an RN sub in to cover a health office so that then RN is one-on-one with the student. So we're not leaving schools uncovered. But if our subs aren't available, schools are being left to be, you know, I don't want to say uncovered, but you know, the RN here at these 2 schools would have to be with the student and our health aide would be covering both the middle school and the high school. It's less than ideal. It's a growing issue. And it feeds right into the second, which is the barriers for charging main care for health office services. When we are providing services to these one-on-one kids, those are billable services, but the barriers and the hoops you have to jump through to get what is ends up being a very small reimbursement is very, very challenging. So I'm gonna leave that at that. Vaccine compliance, I think I talked about rather ad nauseum. I will say, I think vaccine access continues to be a challenge in this community. We don't have a ton of healthcare here. We've got 1 primary care office. We do have an urgent care office. I've met with them a number of times. They aren't able to offer vaccinations. We've tried to kind of come at it from a couple different angles. They can't move the volume through that's required in order to be a state-approved vaccine location. So that's not on the board. So Walgreens comes and goes. Sometimes they have a whole bunch of them. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have a pharmacist. Sometimes they don't. So it's a little inconsistent. Hannaford offers a few vaccines, but they don't offer the full realm of what our students have to have in order to stay in compliance. So easy access to vaccines, I would identify as a challenge in our community. And then the last piece is Tier 1 classroom health instruction. That has been brought up by our nurses as a thing they don't get to that they want to start getting to. So we're hoping if we can land some of these other challenges, we can get to it more. And that's when the nurses go into classrooms and do health lessons, right? Go into classrooms and talk about washing our hands and talking about covering our coughs, talking about, you know, taking care of ourselves, that piece of health education that our schools do, but having our school nurses come in and do that really helps build a healthy community within a school and also that connection for students with kids. Partnerships, Maine Health, our school physician is amazing and is so great about connecting us with resources. I will say Craig and I have been talking about school-based health centers for a long time. That is a state program where a medical office is in the school. The bonus for that, and what addresses a few of these issues here, is instead of saying, hey, can you go to Portland to get your kid vaccinated, I could call a parent and say, hey, can you come to the high school? Because we could do it right here at the high school if you can come on down. So that would be a really great benefit to us for a number of reasons. Maine Health did come forward to us the other day and said, would you be interested in exploring this as a partnership? We said we absolutely would. Literally, that's the whole conversation. So we will keep you updated as this develops over time. It may turn out to be something that really works for us. It may turn out to be something that doesn't work for us, but we're really proud to have that partnership so that we can continue the conversation. Northern Light Health does come and do some vaccine clinics for us. They're able to do flu vaccines. They've been doing those for as long as I've been here. So they come to every school once per year and offer free flu vaccines for any student or staff member who wants to receive it. And frankly, if a few parents show up, they do them too. So they're able to do that. We have tried to work with them to offer other vaccines to try to address the other issue. We've been able to do it once, but once isn't enough. If it's really going to make a dent in the issue, it's kind of got to be like every month that we're doing and offering everything, which is just a little difficult to do. But they've been so great. They really tried to work with us to try to help us with that problem. It's just been a little hard. Maine Oral Health Program comes and do free fluoride clinics in all of our younger schools, so kids can come in and get some dental work for free. I talked to you about the Greater Sebago Education Alliance for Professional Development, and then the Maine Department of Education. They are working really hard to try to support us and answer questions as best they can. They're also locked into a lot of rules that they don't control, so I try to give them grace about that. But they do listen, and they do come and they want to hear from us about what the challenges are, and I do think they really work to help support us. So, and that is all we got.
Thank you, Chanda, for that very granular report. Is there any thoughts or questions? Jason?
So first question on the compliance. Have we as a district sent communication to legislators about the difficulties and hardships that has created?
I have not. I do not believe Craig would have asked me to help him with it, so I'm assuming he has not.
Maine School Management Association and various groups lobbied the legislature when this was going through the legislature, and there were all the key anti-vaccination organizations and pro-vaccination organizations, Maine School Management Associations, all lobbying groups are doing full court press, including MSSA, so on and so forth. And this is the legislation that we've ended up with.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily arguing that. I mean, I'm speaking more in terms of we now have the legislation. We now have real cases that we can speak to where we just cannot meet the letter of the law. Can we, or have we explored the idea of sending this to the legislation so they are aware of real issues that we're having? It seems to me like something that legislators could account for without completely changing the law. And something as simple as being able to, allow a student to remain in compliance as long as they have a date scheduled, right? So it seems like something that could be expressed to our legislators, and hopefully maybe get a little modification.
A little more, yeah. And I'll say Craig and I received literally why this is a little fresh and a little hot for me is we got a communication this morning from the Department of Education that says one or more of your schools is out of compliance. And my stomach went boom. And then he and I dug and we looked at it and we looked, and Tanya and I look at those sheets we looked at them and I was like, and then it just occurred to me, like there was a day and a point where they pulled this report and if one student, and then I was like, what the heck? Like how are we supposed to do this? So we haven't, but I'll say like, as I've sort of explored this, like the Department of Education also hasn't been on us yet about it. So the communication this morning was the first time that they've come down on us. And it essentially, down on us means there's an additional report they want to do, where we'll be reporting to them, yes, this list of kids are out of compliance, but here's the situation of these kids. I can't actually get a view of the whole report until we already go in and do it, and you can only do it in one shot, which is a great system. So I'm hoping we're gonna have some spaces to be able to share some of that piece in this report, but I think it's hard for us to tell the stories of families because we have to be careful about what we say in order to protect their privacy, but it would be interesting to have families who are in these situations tell their story.
It's also not a situation that's unique to us in any way, and it's probably something that's, you know, better handled through the Association of Superintendents or something like, or even the Association of School Nurses or whatever it happens to be, some sort of collective report, because there's no way that we are the only people experiencing these gray areas. So
no, and Tanya
I'm not
was
going to concern too much about, you know, whether we have this issue. There's no way it's unique to us, and there's no way that we should be too worried about it.
And Tanya was super upset this morning, and I was like, Tanya, now that I've read it and digested it, there is not a superintendent in the state that didn't get that letter today. Like, I would love for someone to tell me the district that didn't get that letter today. My bet is every single district got that letter today based on the criteria they're using, because it's not possible, it's not feasible.
Oh, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, what vaccines are we having? We occasionally have trouble with compliance. Is it MMR? Is it chickenpox? Is it HPV?
So
Tdap?
different at every age, right? So every age sort of has a different one. I would say the biggest issue we have is boosters, right? So a child will go in on their well child visit, they'll get the array of whatever's required at their age, but then like this one requires a 6-week follow-up, right? Like those are the ones that seem to tend to get lost. The other one we have the biggest issue with is the second or third dose of meningococcal that kids have to get as juniors and seniors, because at that point, like some of them are 17 and some of them are 18. So who we talk to gets a little weird about that. And then for some of them, like they come due in April of their senior year. Like, am I gonna tell that kid they can't graduate? Like, no. So I think that tends to be our biggest list of kids for a period of time during the year. After that, it's boosters, and then it's kids on catch up. Kids who fell behind for whatever reason, as they get on catch up, that it's very easy to fall behind that catch up schedule if you're not like right on top of it. And you know, as a parent, you're worrying about 100 million things. Like it's, even if you like think this is really, really, really important, it's still hard to keep track of. So it's a little whack-a-mole. I would say from an access issue, meningococcal tends to be the hardest to find. Occasionally they've been out of varicella a few times, which was, but that seems to have resolved. Yeah, that's chickenpox. That seems to have resolved, but finding places that do the meningococcal is a little challenging. I'll also add, with meningococcal, your first dose and then your boosters have to be the same brand. So if you went to a doctor and it was this brand, you can't go someplace else that has a different brand. Going through that with my child right now. And so that gets a little complicated. So.
Go ahead, Fran.
I thought kids couldn't enter school unless they were had all their shots up to date. How is that all, you know, and then that also follows through with boosters and everything else. So prior to the school season, I understand flu season is different, but you know.
Yeah, flu's not required. Yeah.
That's changed,
Yep.
That doesn't happen anymore?
No, so when kids enter the schools, they are supposed to have their whole array. So And it's their first arrival in a main school. So our new Ks or our new pre-Ks coming in, and then a student who's moving out of state into one of our schools. Under the law, they have 90 days. They have 90 days to produce their records or come into compliance. At the end of that 90 days is when we say, okay, you're done. You have to not be in school. We don't have any of those kids. We haven't had that problem. Where it starts to get, like, right, so like the beginning of school is the easy one, right? Because as they're coming in the door, at the end of the summer, you're like, hey, where's your stuff, right? And we're catching it up. Where it starts to get lost is, okay, they had this, but now their booster comes due November 14th. Oh, you know, so now we get, okay, well, did you get the booster? Okay, okay, you have an appointment, great. All right, oh, the appointment got canceled? Okay, so then now when's your new appointment? Okay. We had one that, like, they had the appointment and then the doctor was out of the vaccine. Our nurse called the doctor and verified it. They were out of the vaccine. Now they have to come back another time. So that's where, like, the concept of the law is very black and white. There's a line and now this kid can't come. What we're experiencing is it's not quite that, right? That group of kids that are new to us and have the 90-day window, that's super clear. We're finding that fairly easy to implement. It's the ongoing day-to-day, kids are constantly coming out of compliance and back into compliance.
All right, I feel well educated on that point. Do you have any budget concerns or anything that we should expect to come down the pipeline from the health services office that we're going to need to consider?
Not in the coming year school budget. I think our sort of equipment and investment lines should be fairly steady. We tried to make sure that a lot of the bigger things we needed to change, that we really had to do that over the last couple of years. So our departments is really in great shape. Diane will have to speak to it. I know that going from 5 RNs down to 2 RNs and 3 health aides will have a budgetary impact. But some of it was grant funded and some of it wasn't, so Diane can speak to that more specifically, but that should be a budget savings at the end of the day with any luck. But we shouldn't see any big purchases. I will say in the long term, that electronic health medical records piece is the one I'm sort of seeing out in the distance that might end up having to be an investment.
Excellent, thank you, Jim. Any other questions or concerns for the health offices? All right, thank you very much, Shanna.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, that's the end of the presentation part of the agenda. We did have the addition of the executive session. Just want to get the language of that correct. Okay, here it is. Any other business before I hear a motion on the executive session? All right, seeing none, could I hear a motion to go into executive session regarding the investigation of a complaint against an employee as per 1 MRSA 4056A?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I ask that we invite in Superintendent? Any objections? All right, hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining?
Going into executive session, yeah, I'm voting for that.
Okay. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.